full of trials and pain, world spinning round, driving me insane. Then I found that human need, simple truth like a sweet dream. I'm just a mean human being, life stripped down to what it means. When the world's closing in on you, let that human me shine through. Complications cloud the mind, distractions of every kind. Get back to the basic way. Mean life keeps the blues at bay. I'm just a mean human being, life stripped down to what it means. When the world's closing in on you, let that human me shine through. Shine through. Modern times move way too fast. Good old days, they didn't last. But there's wisdom in simplicity. Human need, it sets you free. I'm just a mean human being, life stripped down to what it needs. When the world's closing in on you, let that human me shine through. Shine through. I'm just a mean human being, life stripped down to what it means. When the world's closing in on you, let that human me shine through. I'm just a mean human being, life stripped down to what it needs. When the world's closing in on you, let that human me shine through.
Welcome to the Human Meme Podcast. I'm AI David Bowles, and along with our crack bot AI research team, we have investigated this topic for you. Preserving authenticity, the ethical dilemma of altering historical artifacts and narratives. Today, we dip into an intriguing and often controversial practice of altering historical artifacts. Be they black and white films, photographs, or the broader narrative arcs of our shared past. We look into the effect of such alterations, not merely as a distortion of aesthetics, but as a significant reshaping of historical accuracy and truth. As we peel back the layers of these modifications, we confront the philosophical and ethical questions they raise about authenticity, artistic integrity, and the legacy we leave for future generations. Our discussion extends beyond the mere act of colorizing old photographs to include the ways in which entire histories are often romanticized, sanitized, or even rewritten to suit contemporary tastes and ideologies. From the silver screens of Hollywood to the solemn corridors of educational institutions, the manipulation of history has pervasive consequences. It influences how we perceive our past and subsequently how we envision our future. We'll explore whether these changes can ever be fully retracted or if the original essence of altered artifacts is lost forever. As well, we'll discuss actionable steps that can be taken today to safeguard the integrity of our current artistic and historical creations for the scrutiny of those 100 years from now. By fostering a deeper understanding and appreciation for the unaltered artifacts of history, we aim to ensure that future generations inherit a past that is as untainted and authentic as possible. The allure of seeing the past in color is understandable. Color adds a layer of realism and relatability that monochrome images seemingly lack. It's tempting to think that colorizing these visuals brings them closer to how life truly was. But this assumption is where the problem begins. By altering these images, we aren't merely adding color. We are imposing our present-day biases and interpretations onto the past. Consider the original artistic intent. Black and white photography and film were not merely the limitations of their time. They were, and still are, a distinct form of artistic expression. The interplay of light and shadow, the nuances of grayscale, and the focus on composition and texture. These elements speak a language of visual art that color can sometimes overshadow. When filmmakers like Alfred Hitchcock chose to shoot Psycho in black and white, despite the availability of color film, he was making an artistic choice to enhance the psychological tension and starkness of his thriller. Colorizing such a movie detracts from the deliberate choices made by the creator. Also, the process of colorization is inherently flawed. It's a guesswork game. Historical accuracy in hues is nearly impossible to achieve with certainty. How can we presume to know the precise shade of a 1940s automobile or the exact tint of a dress worn at a 1920s gathering? These guesses are based on assumptions and often influenced by the colorizer's personal and cultural context, which may not align with historical truths. This introduces a layer of fictionalization on what might be someone's only visual connection to a particular era. Consider the famous photo of Times Square on VJ Day, 1945, taken by Alfred Eisenstadt. The power of that image in black and white, capturing the spontaneity, the relief, the overwhelming emotion of the moment, is palpable. When such an image is colorized, the focus can shift inadvertently from the expressions and emotions of the subjects to the colors of their clothes or the background. The historical weight and the photographer's skill in capturing the moment can be overshadowed by the novelty of color. There's also the broader cultural and educational implications to consider. When we alter these historical artifacts, because that is what they are, we risk misleading future generations about the authenticity of historical documentation. A colorized photograph presented without context may be perceived as an accurate representation of the past, when it is, in fact, a reinterpretation. This skewing of history does a disservice to both the subject of the photograph and the viewer. Furthermore, the aesthetic of black and white imagery often communicates more than just visual details. It conveys a sense of time, evoking a historical ambience that colorization can erase. There's a reason why many contemporary filmmakers and photographers still choose to work in black and white. It's not a mere stylistic choice, but a deliberate decision to tap into the timeless and sometimes more emotionally resonant quality that black and white media can possess. Colorizing black and white films and photographs is not just about adding hues. It's about altering history, misrepresenting realities, and undermining the artistic integrity of the original creators. Let us respect history and preserve the integrity of its artifacts. Let's appreciate the depth and beauty of black and white and recognize it as a valid and complete portrayal of past times, not a mere draft waiting for color. Expanding the discussion from the specific issue of colorization to the broader practice of altering historical artifacts, we find a troubling trend of reshaping history to suit modern aesthetic or ideological preferences. This phenomenon is not limited to visual media. It permeates various aspects of how we perceive and teach history. From films to textbooks, from monuments to museum exhibits, the contemporary biases and values can obscure the truth of historical events and figures. Take, for instance, the film industry's portrayal of historical events. Hollywood has a long history of dramatizing and romanticizing real events and personalities, often at the expense of accuracy. While dramatization can make history more accessible and engaging, it also shapes public perception, sometimes erroneously. For example, the film Braveheart, while compelling as cinema, plays fast and loose with the facts of Scottish history. The liberties taken with historical figures and battles not only distort the viewer's understanding, but also implant a modified narrative that can be difficult to correct. Another area where history is often beautified or altered to fit modern tastes is the restoration and presentation of historical sites and monuments. Restoration projects sometimes reflect current architectural trends or the need to make sites more appealing to tourists rather than striving for historical accuracy. This can be seen in the reconstruction of ancient sites using modern materials or techniques that did not exist at the time, thus giving visitors a skewed impression of historical reality. Furthermore, the way history is taught in schools often reflects the prevailing ideologies or cultural biases of the society. Textbooks may emphasize certain events over others, or interpret conflicts and cultural interactions through a distinctly modern lens. This kind of selective historical teaching not only narrows students' understanding of complex historical narratives, but also perpetuates a homogenized view that may ignore less dominant perspectives. In museums, the curatorial choices about which items to display and how to interpret them can significantly influence public understanding of history. Exhibits that prioritize certain narratives or aesthetic presentations can inadvertently marginalize other equally important stories. For example, the representation of indigenous cultures in many Western museums has often been criticized for focusing on artistic or aesthetic value of artifacts, rather than their cultural and historical significance, thereby diminishing the full context of those items. This pattern of altering history, whether through visual media, academic frameworks, or cultural presentation, fundamentally challenges our ability to engage with the past authentically. It creates a sanitized, often commercialized version of history that may be more palatable or attractive but less truthful and informative. In defending the unaltered artifacts of history, whether they be black and white photographs or original historical texts, we advocate for a direct confrontation with the past as it was, not as we wish it to be. Recognizing and preserving the authenticity of historical artifacts is crucial in fostering a more informed and critical understanding of the past. It allows us to appreciate the true complexity of history, with all its nuances and gray areas, rather than a polished, simplified version tailored to modern tastes. By resisting the urge to beautify history, we honor the integrity of those who lived it and provide a more accurate legacy for those who will study it in the future. Now, as we navigate the complexities of altering historical narratives and aesthetics, it's crucial to consider not just the impact on our understanding of the past, but also the implications for the future. The practice of changing history to suit contemporary tastes or ideologies not only distorts our collective memory, but also sets a precedent for future manipulations. The question then arises, can we ever truly take back what has changed? If history has been altered, can it be restored? And what measures can we put in place today to protect the integrity of our current creations for future generations? The challenge in taking back altered history is significant. Once a narrative has been changed and disseminated widely, correcting the record involves not just providing new or accurate information, but also contending with the established perceptions that people have already absorbed. This is particularly difficult in the age of information, where incorrect or altered historical facts can spread and take root globally at unprecedented speeds. For instance, consider the example of a historically inaccurate movie that becomes a cultural touchstone. Even if historians later debunk the inaccuracies, the movie's version of events may continue to be more influential in the public mind than the actual facts. The battle then is not just against a single instance of misinformation, but against a widespread and deeply ingrained cultural memory. However, while completely taking back altered history may be challenging, it is not entirely impossible. It requires concerted efforts in education, transparent communication, and the persistent advocacy of historians, educators, and cultural institutions to promote and disseminate accurate historical information. Additionally, technology can play a crucial role. Digital archives, virtual reality, and augmented reality offer new ways to engage with and understand history accurately, allowing people to explore historical contexts in immersive and interactive ways that can counteract previous distortions. Looking forward, to ensure the aesthetic and historical integrity of what is created today remains unaltered for future generations, several measures can be taken. Documentation and archival. Rigorous documentation of artistic and historical works and their contexts should be maintained. Establishing comprehensive archives with detailed records can provide future historians with the necessary resources to understand the original intent and conditions of a work. Legal protections. Copyright laws and cultural heritage protections can be strengthened to safeguard against unauthorized alterations of historical and artistic works. These legal frameworks can ensure that any change to a piece of work, like a film or photograph, is done with respect to the creator's original intentions and historical accuracy. Educational curricula. Embedding media literacy and critical historical analysis into educational curricula can equip future generations with the tools to question and critically analyze historical narratives and representations, reducing the risk of accepting altered history uncritically. Technological solutions. Utilizing blockchain and other immutable data storage technologies to preserve digital artifacts ensures that original versions remain accessible, providing a baseline against which alterations can be measured. Ethical standards. Cultivating a culture that values authenticity and historical accuracy over sensationalism or aesthetics in the representation of history can help ensure that future generations appreciate and preserve the integrity of artistic and historical works. Ultimately, while we may not be able to completely undo the changes made to history, we can take robust steps to mitigate further alterations and ensure that the integrity of current creations is respected by those who come after us. This approach not only preserves the artifacts of our time, but also honors the truth of our shared history, allowing future generations to learn from the past as it truly was, not as it has been imagined. As we conclude today's exploration into the ethical and aesthetic implications of altering historical artifacts, let's gather our thoughts and reflections into a cohesive understanding. We've looked through the foggy landscape of modified pasts, witnessing firsthand the delicate interplay between artistic interpretation and historical authenticity. It's clear that while the allure of a more vivid, accessible past is tempting, the cost is a compromised truth, a narrative reshaped by contemporary hands, distanced from the raw realities of its origin. We've seen how colorizing black and white photographs and films can dilute the original artistic intent, turning heartfelt expressions of a bygone era into palatable postcards for modern consumption. This practice, though seemingly benign, is a gateway to broader distortions of history, where the lines between fact and fiction become blurred in the service of aesthetic or ideological preferences. Our discussion has underscored the permanent risk of these alterations. Once history is rewritten, it is a monumental task to restore its truth. It involves not only correcting the record, but also battling against the deep-seated misconceptions that have taken root in public consciousness. Yet, not all is lost. Through education, technological innovations, and legal protections, we can safeguard the integrity of historical narratives and ensure that they stand unaltered as testaments to our times for future generations. Let this be a call to action for all of us, as custodians of history and creators of the future. Let us strive to preserve the authenticity of our shared past, recognizing that each alteration, each color added, and each narrative tweaked weaves a different future, one that may stray from the truths we owe our ancestors and the truths we owe ourselves. In wrapping up, let us commit to a future where history is respected and preserved, not as we wish it to be, but as it truly was. This isn't merely an academic exercise. It's a moral imperative to ensure the stories we tell are as genuine as the lives they represent. By holding on to the authentic artifacts and narratives of our past, we guard the truth, and with it, our own integrity and that of generations to come. This is our charge, our challenge, and perhaps our greatest responsibility as stewards of history in an ever-changing world. Thank you for joining us today. For the Human Meme Podcast, I'm AI David Bowles, wishing you a pleasant evening and a good tomorrow. Be a human meme.
Life so full of trials and pain, world spinning round, driving me insane. Then I found that human me, simple truth like a sweet dream. I'm just a meme, human meme, life stripped down to what it means. When the world's closing in on you, let that human meme shine through. Complications cloud the mind, distractions of every kind. Get back to the basic way. Mean life keeps the blues at bay. I'm just a meme, down to what it means. When the world's closing in on you, let that human me shine through.